making a statement of whether it's going to be a buyer's market or seller's market, does it even matter for your profession of what it's going to be next year? Or does it just matter what it is doing today? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm Matt Benelli, my co-host, Garrett Fry. We are here with you, and we are excited to give you this kind of like quick bump, little bit of a conversation about economics and supply and demand, buyers versus sellers market versus that neutral zone. And so we're going to dive into that here right away. So Garrett, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, sir. Doing great today, and excited to talk about this because this came up on a coaching call here the other day where we were talking about, the current sellers market that we're in right now. We were talking, I have a real strong belief that all the sellers out there that are going like, oh, I'm going to offer 0% to the buy side, like it's on them. I don't want to deal with it. I keep saying if this changes to a buyer's market, this entire strategy for these sellers is going to be thrown out the window in the gutter. Like it ain't going to fly in a strong buyer's market. Works in a seller's market, not in a buyer's market. I perceive that that's what's going to happen. This is my belief. So with that being said, one of the agents I was talking to said, well, it's impossible for us to go into a buyer's market because there's not enough homes out there. The builders haven't built enough homes. There's not enough inventory. It's impossible to go into a buyer's market. This is what was said to me. And I said, all it takes is enough sellers right now going, I want to sell. That's all it takes. We could have something happen in the economy. We could have something happen in the world, and enough people go, I want my money out of my house. I want to free things up. I want to change some stuff right now. And enough people on your street go, for sale sign in the front yard, and there's not enough buyers to back it up. We are thrown into a buyer's market. So it could happen at any time. And this is what I thought was interesting because she was dead set on it was like impossible to happen. And I don't agree.
I don't agree either. Also because it's so hyper local, how you look at these things, whether or not the offerings of compensation, play a role in that and all that stuff is a whole different thing. But, I just was doing some math with.
That's what led us to this, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That. Yeah.
I was doing some math with the client about a condo that they have for sale, and they were talking about how do we talk to the seller about their position in the marketplace. I said, well, let's look at the absorption patterns and what kind of market you're dealing with. 15 months of inventory for this particular type of property, right? Strong buyer's market, very strong buyer's market when you're looking at 15 months of inventory. And it's like, okay, that changes the way you want to present and market a property because you have to be more aggressive. You got to get to the front of the line. And so, and this is in Florida, by the way, where generally there is a seller's market, but this pocket happens to be experiencing a buyer's market. And for those agents in the Washington, D.C. metro area, you know all about this because single family, like hot seller's market, condos, hot buyer's market. Well, cold buyer's market. It's so buyer heavy, the buyers don't even want to do that. And so I think one thing to understand too, people always look at inventory levels as the indicator of a buyer's versus seller's market. And it's because it's what we can see. However, the truth is, the demand can also change what type of market we in. The upcoming supply, like you said, all it takes is enough sellers to say, hey, I want to buy. Also, all it takes is enough buyers to say, I'm done. I'm not buying.
100%.
I am no longer going to be purchasing in this market right now. And all of a sudden it could flip to a buyer's market because of that.
And Matt, that's why when I always say to somebody, when you are working in your marketplace, you're putting a listing on the market, I always say, just check and see what sales are happening out there. What is going on? Talk with other strong listing agents in your marketplace and be like, what are you seeing for offers coming in right now? What kind of activity? Because that will tell you the buyer pool that's sitting out there. Because you can have a crazy run up of inventory of sellers saying, I'm out, I'm selling, and be backed by a ton of buyers going,
it could inspire. All of a sudden, be like, look, there's more choices, more buyers all of a sudden come to market, and it actually overpowers all the new listings, and it's still a strong seller's market.
Can totally happen. So I'm happy you brought up that it can't just be inventory. You can't just watch the inventory levels. because again, they're fluctuating like this. You got two different variables you're playing with here, and you can have really high buyers and really low inventory. You can have really high inventory, really low buyers, but they can also move up together and they can move down together. And you could look at it from the outside, run your numbers, and be like, it doesn't look like anything's really changed. I feel like things are busier. I feel like things are happening. But all of a sudden, the whole tide rose up, and buyers and sellers are jumping in the pool at the same time. It can really change your perception on what's happening. And again, I think that you know I'm curious to watch the marketplace as we continue to move forward. In my own personal opinion, and what I've watched over 20 years of watching marketplaces change and adapt and evolve, we are, I see, kind of going to a place right now that we could see a lot of sellers kind of go, all right, like I'm ready to make a move again. I'm ready to make a change, make an adjustment. And if the buyers aren't there to be able to buy, or if if their affordability is pushed out of their max, for the situation that they're currently in their life, like we could very easily find ourselves into a buyer market situation again, that we have not seen one for a very long time. I think when we transitioned out of the last buyer's market into a seller's market, I might be off by a year or two here, year or two, but I'm going back to like 2012. I mean, really?
Yeah. I mean, from a nationwide standpoint, yeah. I mean, and I think this just, there's so many factors that go into what is a market going to do, including the mindset of everybody, which then, gets translated obviously into action, either people going to look at homes and get, pre-approvals and that kind of thing. And you look at 2008, right? Morgan Housel mentions this in The Psychology of Money, which was our book of the month last month inside our coaching program. And he basically says like 2008 to 2009, 10 was a crisis of just how people perceived value and the marketplace, right? Now, yes, you could go back and say what caused it and all that kind of stuff, sure. But it wasn't like all of a sudden people just didn't need to buy a house. Right? Values plummeted because people didn't see the value of, one, the credit system that was backing housing at the time, right? And that then played a role in the broader economy, which led to other things that happened that prevented people from having, or wanting to make the financial sacrifice to purchase homes when they're like, well, I'll just wait a little bit longer.
I remember 2009 talking with a ex homeowner, and their perception was, I will never buy a house ever again. I never want to be a homeowner ever again. I got burned so bad through this time right now. I think it was about 2009, 2010, that like it takes a while to remove some of that scar tissue, if it ever goes away. And these are these trends that we watch that kind of go through. And there's a lot of people that have some different perceptions of what it meant to be a homeowner back then. And again, it also, for a lot of people, was not easy to buy. Loans were not being handed out to everybody because banks were afraid.
Well, even
protection mode.
Morgan Housel says in the book, like the people who, defaulted, who were foreclosed on in 2008, missed out on the opportunity to take advantage of low interest rates because they no longer qualified, right? And credit, plays a big factor into the housing market today, right? I mean, the 30-year fixed mortgage, which unlocked a lot of opportunity for people to purchase homes, also, in my opinion, probably helped drive prices up in a faster pace, hasn't really been around for that long, right? Owning real estate was a lot different decades and decades ago, and certainly go back a century and beyond. It's like very, very different, right? And so we try to understand and predict trends based on these short periods of time in history where it's really hard to. And so, Garrett, too, the other thing is making a statement of whether it's going to be a buyer's market or seller's market. Does it even matter for your profession of what it's going to be next year? Or does it just matter what it is doing today?
For me, like the number one reason you want to know is how to guide your buyers and sellers. That's really, that is the number one reason you need to know those numbers. Does it predict whether you're going to be successful in real estate or not successful in real estate? Absolutely not. Like I watched people that just crushed it in 2008, 2009, 2010, where we had some markets, I know my market, we had 34 months of inventory. Like, and our odds of selling was 6% in 30 days. Horrible numbers, but people crushed it during that time. They educated their people properly. The ones that needed to sell, the ones that needed to buy, they got them positioned correctly in the marketplace, and boom, they sold and they bought and they made it work. So it's like, it's not a predictor of your success. Knowing this information, analyzing your marketplace, and understanding what potentially could come up, because we are in a transition place right now. Like, a lot of you out there that are looking at homes on the market and going, I don't get it. That one should have sold. I feel like it's priced right. I'm hearing this from everywhere. Like, so many people are going like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's kind of happening right now. That is a transition place that we're in. We've come out of a long time of appreciation. It might dip. It might go back up. It might stay flat for a little bit. We don't know. But in that transition period, we got to do the best we can to educate these people, to help them take that next step, move forward, have some comfort a little bit about what do I do right now to be successful. But your success, your homes that you're going to sell, there's always a marketplace for you to be successful in real estate. You're either dealing with people that are going, Yahoo, let's go, let's buy, let's do this. Or you maybe have some people going, oh, crap. Like, I need to free up. I need to do things differently. We need to downsize. We need to rethink how we've handled our real estate. Let's unload some of these properties. Let's get them out of here so we can free up some cash. There's always a market, though. There's always people swinging one way or the other.
There is always a market. And I think this also highlights, the absolutes that come with things, right? So for the agent you were talking to, it's like, oh, it'll never be a buyer's market. Well, also the absolutes that come with it being a seller's market. Well, in a seller's market, you can always do X, or in a buyer's market, buyers can always do Y. And that becomes an issue too, when you just assume how a market will perform given statistics, because I've seen properties in a very strong buyer's market get multiple offers and sell for over asking, right? That happens. We're like, well, it must have been priced so low. Maybe, but one, you never know, because you can't go back in time and do it again in a different scenario, or take that situation and place it into today. You can't, because everything is different. The economy, the overall economy is different. The currency is different. The value of time is different for people. There's so many things that are different every single time. So what you want to focus on is what are the positions of today, right? And looking at the stats, Garrett, to understand this, really all we can look at is the pace at which inventory moves, right? That is kind of the facts and figures that we can look at to understand what's going on. But I think it behooves us to have the conversation with our clients to say, hey, there are some other things that we can't always see. And so we may see some surprises, but we also want to be prepared in the other direction too, because you can take that property here. It's like, well, it should have sold by now. It's like, well, maybe we're missing a change in what people value from a property standpoint. Maybe we're changing how people value location in this area, which could impact why a property moves or doesn't move. Or maybe we forgot to really take into account that busy road back there is a problem for a lot of people. And the current demand doesn't want to be there because there is more availability over here. Even though it is a seller's market, this particular property is on the outside of that seller's market.
Going back to the psychology of money and Morgan Housel's book, is that the human behaviors are a whole factor that are really hard to predict. Their mindset, their beliefs about how the economy's working, when's the right time to buy, when's the right time to sell. You look at this in the auto industry right now, they're going through their swings all over the place. And there's people that look at this as like opportunity time. And there's people that are sitting back and going like, I'm not touching any cars right now. Like, I'm not going anywhere near that world. And at the same point, like, there's a huge mindset, and we'll stick on cars here. I haven't talked about cars in a long time, Matt. But there's the people, the mindset out there that you can never make money on cars. Cars are always a losing battle. And I watched my friend recently here buy a I think it was like $40,000 Porsche. And every bit of me was kind of going like, dude, I hope that like works out okay. Like, really enjoy the car. He can sell it right now for more than what he bought it for. Like, I'm watching it. I've been looking at the numbers. I can kind of playing around with it and going like, what does that really mean? And And there's a lot of people that make a lot of money on cars and these types of things and buy and sell at the right time because they understand how it works. And this is where I look at the housing industry, bring it back to that, is that there's so many variables we're playing with here and so many different beliefs. And you're right, Matt. There are homes in a strong buyer's market that all of a sudden will have everybody hit it all at once. And it might be the price, but it might be something completely different that made that house appealing to those people at that right time. You know, we all base it on coincidence, but we've all had that home that has sat and sat and sat and sat and sat. And then boom, all of a sudden we have an offer come in and then there's another offer and there's another offer. And you're like, where have these been? Like, okay, we've been sitting here for months and where has this been? Could it be a coincidence? Could it be that somebody else heard that there was an offer coming in and they're like, we better get in on it quickly? More often than not, there's something else out there that triggered people that made them go, that for some reason, that house, this is what we want to do. And all of a sudden you got a whole bunch of offers in on it. So it's really hard to predict all this stuff. If you're trying to make predictions of what's going to happen out here, what it's going to look like, throw COVID into it. Who would have ever suspected that COVID would have spiked the market like it did?
Big time too, man. You look at those 2020 versus 2021 appreciation graphs.
It made everybody take those life changes that were kind of in the wings, that were kind of like, it's not really pushing me to move, not really driving me. It all of a sudden swung the lever so far where they're like, you know what? I'm out of this relationship. I can't live in this house anymore. Like, it was one thing when we were commuting and I lived in and I had to get away like during the day, and then I come back and we would just have dinner together. And then all of a sudden we're back in this house and it's like, I'm stuck. I got to get out of here. And we divorce and boom, selling a property, moving to different homes, moving up, all of a sudden, huge spike. Can't predict this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
try.
And even today, right now, right, we're heading up to a presidential election, which usually slows down the market. And typically, history shows that property values appreciate post an election. However, I could see why a lot of people might hesitate based on some of the tax policies being floated out there by either candidate on certain things. They get people to pause because they're just not understanding what's going on. And so, you know, there's so many different things that can slow a market down this month and accelerate it the next month, that we also have to just, every time we go into any market, and we really didn't have to, we always deployed this up until recently, which is patience, right? You don't know what the market's going to perform like based on past data. And so we use that data as best as possible to help us position a property or position a buyer into a scenario where they can achieve success. And then we have to deploy some patience. Now, doesn't mean you stop doing all the things that you can do to sell a property or help a buyer find something or negotiate something out, but it does mean patience can help you a lot through these times as well, Garrett. And perception's huge, man. It's funny, you were thinking about cars, right? And you and I have talked about trucks, and out in Northern California, you're like, man, we got lots just filled with trucks, right? And I was driving down to Beaufort last weekend and passing a few dealerships, and there was no trucks on the lots. I was like, man, there's nothing out there. And then I was thinking about the other thing. Like, if I said to you, Garrett, Land Rover, what do you think?
First thing that comes to mind?
Yes.
Defender is what the first thing that popped into my mind, but keep going.
Okay. Value of a Land Rover. Then what?
Well, because I used to sell them, be careful. They're expensive, but be careful.
Be careful because they're not reliable, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to do some research on this. I'm like, are they really not reliable at all? So I started like going to some forums because I was curious. I'm like, is this really proven out? And I cannot definitively find people who actually own Land Rovers talking about how horrible they are versus the people who don't own them telling everyone how unreliable that they are. And this is like deep into the Reddit forums and stuff like this. I'm like, so I don't even know if that's really true, but the perception does make it a reality.
Yeah.
Right.
You're looking at buying a Land Rover, aren't you?
The value of a used Land Rover or a Range Rover, if, you know, is so much lower compared to like if you went and you wanted to buy a few-year-old Ford F-150 versus a Range Rover, you could probably get the Range Rover for cheaper than the F-150, right?
Yeah.
Because of the perception of reliability. Ford built tough, reliable truck versus unreliable British.
Well, so let me throw my knowledge into this because I did work at a Land Rover dealership for a long time.
That was before they were owned by the, Tata Motors and
No,
all
no, no.
that.
Yeah, and this is what I think is that this is where this all comes from. Was we talk about people. This ties right back, Matt, into what people's history and relationship has been, whether it's with the housing economy and they're like, I got burned in it, or whether it was back in the '80s when they owned a Range Rover and Lucas Electronics was who was running their electronics for their systems in their cars, notorious for going out and causing all kinds of weird issues going on. And believe me, in the dealership, we're like, oh, Lucas Electronics, oh my gosh. And then the other side of it was their air ride suspension systems used to always fail. They would come in riding on their bump stops, like being dragged in, and we're like, yep, another one lost its air compressor or blew a line out or whatever. But that energy doesn't leave those people that had those experiences. I watched all that. I hold on to it. There's a lot of people right now that are buying their second Range Rover. They bought their first one 5 years ago, and they're like, "It's the best car I've ever had. It was incredible. I loved it. I know I don't understand what all these other people are talking about."
Well, and that's like, baby boomers from when they bought their first house being like, it's the best way to generate wealth versus millennials who maybe bought their first house, or Gen Xers who bought their first house in 2008, 2009, saying it was the worst thing, or 2007, I should say. It was the worst thing you ever did. It killed my wealth, right? And so that perception, timing, that's in psychology and money too. So
these all get passed down. All these belief systems get passed down. The people that got burned in 2008, they're going to share that with their kids about how real estate was, the worst thing they ever did. It's all this stuff gets handed down generation after generation. And I come from a time of real estate's an incredible investment and it's done well for me. I've also actually kind of walked around these downturns and been like, okay, hold at the right time, just hold, 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 hold. And it's worked. I didn't sell. And we came out the other side going, yeah, real estate's still been awesome. I'm not worried about that at all. But going back to where we started this whole conversation, Matt, which is, to be in the mindset that this can't go to a buyer's market because they can't build enough houses fast enough. They can't, all these things. Be just careful about holding on to that belief, because what you need to do is you need to do your research. There are pockets out there right now. I've already watched markets go into buyer's markets around the United States, not all of them, but we've already started to see it happen. At the same point, right now, a lot of people that I'm coaching one-on-one, Matt, are coming to me and going, I'm making all my calls, I'm talking to all my people, and we are lining up listings for February.
yep,
So many people are saying, I want to sell my home, but we're going to do it when spring hits. Get me on the list. Let's start making the preparations now to get this thing ready to go. Those are the things I'm paying attention to, because could it lead to a buyer's market? Might, if the buyers show up at the same exact time, because everybody's shifting properties and changing hands, could still be really low inventory. And
it could be. Well, and
know.
here's the thing too. The one other element of the real estate market that doesn't exist in all, in commodity markets necessarily. I mean, it can is typically those sellers are also going to become buyers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there are people that, that age out, right? They move into retirement homes and things like that, or they move into rentals, or that real estate gets transferred to another generation. Like that does happen for sure, right? And so you have just homeowners who exit and new homeowners who come in. That's been a natural part of real estate trends forever. But in the middle, right, a lot of those people who are raising their hands to become sellers could also be buyers, and that could impact too. So like, yes, don't predict, but also understand that how quickly it can become a buyer's market, because it can happen fast and it can happen under your nose if you're not paying attention to those appreciation.
Maybe the way to look at this, Matt, and then we can kind of put a bow on this episode is trading or not trading. There's marketplaces that we're in where there's just no trading happening. And trading would be buyers that want to buy and sellers that want to sell, and swapping homes and changing locations and whatnot. If you get into a high trading of real estate marketplace, it's not about building more inventory. It's not having a surplus of inventory. It's a high trading market that we can go into where we got lots of people shifting and changing their environments. And as a real estate agent, what you want is again, because we don't have the inventory, at least there's not a plethora of inventory hitting the marketplace in most marketplaces. We want high trading. That means buyers that want to buy, sellers that want to sell, and they want to swap properties back and forth. And this is all education that all of you can do to sit down with your sellers and your buyers and say, what marketplace are we in right now? And what does this look like? And how can I help you interpret what we're getting into at this moment in time? Because a really high trading market, put your pads on. Let's get out there. We're going to go to, we got some battle to be doing. Really low trading market as a seller, we got to really show up if we're going to grab these people's attention that are sitting out here in the marketplace right now. Different how you're going to talk to your buyers, different how you're going to talk to your sellers in all these markets. So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents. That's my thought.
Love it. I love it. There it is. Run the numbers, be present, talk to your people.
With that being said, if you like what we're talking about here and you want to learn more about what Matt and I are all about when we're not doing the podcast, go check us out at Life at 10 Tenths. You can find, we got a landing page there. You can check it out, see what we're all about. If you like even more what we're talking about, you're like, I want to be involved with what they've got going on. We have the 11 Circle, which is our coaching program that's available there. Above that, we've got small group coaching. We've got one-on-one coaching. You can have Matt and I individually if you'd like to. But for the most part, we've got this amazing group of people in the 11 Circle that's growing out. We're working together. We're growing better businesses. We're helping people achieve their dreams. We'd love to have you be part of it with us. So come join if that's something that's interesting to you. Otherwise, we'll be back with more content, more stories. And Matt, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.